Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live event. We're talking about transfers today. I have James Ortolani, our regional sales manager in the Midwest, heartland of the country. And we have Andy McDonald, our technical director over at in Europe. And we're having a little bit of problems with Andy's connection, so we're going to do the best we can. How you doing, guys?
Doing great, Ray. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good.
How you doing, Andy?
Not too bad. Not too
Okay,
bad.
not too bad. So we've gotten a lot of calls on transfers. This is going to be basic transfer printing. We're going to just go through the steps. We're not talking about any particular type of ink, but we will touch on some inks in our presentation. We want to first start out. I'm going to ask you guys quickly. Many folks that watch probably already know some advantages of the transfers. That's why they're looking into it. But they probably don't know all the advantages to using a transfer. Can we cover them all? Why use transfers?
I think one of the first things that comes to mind is inventory, lower inventory, particularly in today's, the economic climate that we're in at the moment. It was a couple of years ago. I was involved with a customer who won the contract for like a large 3-day event, and the problem we had was a few issues. One was that the event organizer couldn't guarantee the attendance numbers, so that was a problem. The second problem was it was going to be obviously specifically dated to the year and the time. So any garments that's been printed, we've got an issue with that if it's not sold. The third, and it was the worst issue, is that the customer, instead of saying you can only have one placement, center chest, which is the right thing to do, he said no, you can have sleeves, you can have back, you can have, everything, neck, you name it. So we ended up with like about 6 placements on each garment. And number 4 was we're running the whole gamut. So you're printing, baseball caps all the way through to like expensive jackets here. So margins were tight. The customer had the contract to supply the garments. Margins were tight. So this is when transfers really came into strength, because what we did was we produced a limited range of garments of all the products. And we were fortunate that the printer was close to the event, so we could actually, we almost started printing to order. We were turning it around in 2 hours, sort of thing, yeah. And the upshot was the customer was left with no unsold stock, no expensive stock left.
Nice.
And it was the only way to do it was transfers. There was no question. You couldn't do it by direct printing, So that's one example of where transfers can work for you.
Yeah, and Andy and Ray, I'd like to add to that. I worked with a major retailer once that was doing local store marketing, and they would print for they'd have on their store shelves all the sizes for the local schools, but they always needed a few more extra larges, and with direct print, they couldn't do that. They had everything ready in transfers. They could always fill their shelves. So that's a great point on inventory control. Probably one of the large reasons.
So that's right. Okay, so we made a point for inventory control. We made a point for on-site event printing, which is a fantastic, point. And backfilling orders. That's, I was in the retail lines, and there was times when it was just painful to set up for 3 or 4 pieces for a retail line or an event line, or even worse. More commonly is like school groups, where they forgot a few kids, or maybe the kid actually needed an extra large instead of a large, and things like that would happen. And you're not going to let that kid go to the event without a shirt. So they come back, and almost always, and they'll ask for 5 more shirts or 6 more shirts. It's painful, but it's a customer. You want to take care of them. But transfers, you're able to fulfill that, even into different size, even to different color shirts, if you needed to. If you had supervisors or leaders needed black shirts as compared to blue shirts, something like that. I think, James, you want to talk a little bit about online sales too.
Yeah, because back in the 1990s, I got in early on a .com group, and I was providing preprints for online sales, and my wife would every day fill the orders and take them to the post office one at a time. But guess what, Ray? We never had the right size. Someone would pick I want a XX long sleeve. We had too many options, and we could not print them fast, so we just had transfers. And there were days I'd actually run to a retailer and buy a certain garment to ship it that day. So it gave me a lot of flexibility. It was really the only way to go with online sales without having a whole inventory full of preprints.
Well, it was the old school way of fulfilling that need that, sometimes now the direct-to-garment is fulfilling. But back in the day, that's how you did it. And it's still viable today. I mean, it's still a good way to fulfill those kind of orders.
Absolutely.
I think, Andy, you were talking a little bit about the, like difficult garments to print. I mean,
just think of baseball caps to start with. Who wants to print on a baseball cap? It's like, forget it. And again, okay, embroidery or transfer. It's perfect for that application. And again, like neck labels, transfers. Absolutely perfect for that kind of application, So yeah, difficult garments. You get these garments nowadays, you see them, these jackets with no access. So you get double skin, layers, things like that, Again, you can't direct print. So yeah, again, transfer comes back into strength, So yeah.
Exactly.
Let's move on. We know why we're doing it. Let's talk a little bit about. I'm having difficulties now too. Okay, let's talk about art considerations real quick. Obviously, I think the very first thing is you got to reverse your print because you're creating a piece of art that you're going to flip and apply onto the shirt. Any other points?
I'll bet we've all made that mistake. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have one thing on that is that a lot of people will take an existing film positive and just flip it over. But really, you should actually flip your art on the screen so that you have an emulsion of your film against the emulsion of your screen. So you really should make a positive for transfers instead of flipping if you follow me, instead of using existing film positives.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of undercutting happens, so flip it and then you'll be fine.
So we're going to try to. You want to stay away from trapping. You want to stay away from.
Yeah.
You just got to pick your poison. I mean, if you get some fine details, you got a really good detailed garment. I mean, there's some tips in that too. So you want to actually butt the butt. You're going to be backing it, and you're going to be printing it reversed, right? You're going to be printing like if there's a key line, you're putting that down, and then you're putting colors, and then you're putting the backer. So you got to think of it in reverse, kind of like if you ever painted a design on a window. You have to think of it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Key line, colors, and then backer.
Right. And just make sure the detail that hangs out on its own has got a little bit thicker line than what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just a bit more. Yeah, especially if you're going to powder the transfer. We'll talk about that later. Real fine lines are hard to pick up.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Save the trouble. Don't try to be an artist. You're making a T-shirt. Just do this.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Let's go to the next. Transfer papers. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Right. This is probably one of the most important things. Can you tell us a little bit about how you pick your transfer paper?
Okay. Who's going to go first?
Go ahead, Andy.
Okay. For cold peel, you're looking for a coated paper. Simple as that. Yeah. Now that can go from a very cheap, like a vegetable parchment, all the way through to, the T75s, the T105 coated papers. Yeah. But the essential thing for cold peel transfer, because you want 100% release of ink or transfer of ink to garment, is it has to be a coated paper. That's the key thing for cold peel transfers.
Yes, and that's if anybody who hasn't done transfer, if you ever apply a transfer, you'll see them when you peel it off, all the ink comes off of the paper. It's left on the garment.
Yeah.
You want to speak a little bit about uncoated paper, James?
Yeah, so the uncoated paper that we've used for years, it feels a lot like bond paper. The ink, and this is used for hot split transfers. And the reason for that, we want some of the plastisol to actually go into the grain of the paper, so that after we peel it on the heat press, after application, part of the ink stays on the paper. It's usually about a third stays on the paper and 2/3 goes to the garment. We always inspect the paper to make sure that we've got a good clean peel, but we do want it to split. And that looks just like a direct screen print, guys. It's amazing how much like it feels and looks like a direct screen print. It's not as popular as it was in the 90s. There's still some great hot split inks out there that there's some prints.
Yeah, I love the hot split on the simulated process stuff going on light garments, and you cannot tell that it's a transfer. When people say, "Oh, I can tell," and nowadays you can say, "Hey, is that direct to screen or is that a transfer?" It has that little bit of a coating feel.
Yeah.
Not with the hot split.
Here's a funny story, Ray. At a trade show, they said, "Take that to James. He can tell you if it's a transfer or not on a direct print." So I held the shirt up and I could see the square around it. And I said, "Oh, that's a transfer." And they said, "How could you tell the difference?" And I finally came clean and said, "I saw the square. It looked so much like a direct print."
Yeah.
Little trick there.
Let's talk a little bit about the storage. How do you store your paper, Andy? When you store the paper, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I can hear you now. If you're going for a single color cold paper transfer,
yeah,
there's no great issue. You can keep your paper just ambient temperature. It's the problems, not problems, but the issues begin when you want to produce multicolor transfers. Then you have to pre-shrink the paper. You have to remove the moisture from the paper, but you also then have to keep the moisture out of the paper.
Oh.
So typically, we would run the papers through the dryer, obviously with no print. And most customers would make up either as soon as it comes off the dryer, go straight into like a plastic bag, so it's a sealed environment. Some customers make quite simple like hot boxes, just kind of simple box with some shelves in it, and you put a small dryer in there, and just keep it at a constant temperature. But the critical thing is to keep the moisture out of the paper, returning into the paper again, because then you will never hold registration.
Yeah. The paper is just like shirts. Once it comes out of the dryer, it starts absorbing. I mean, it's dry, so it's trying to absorb the atmosphere, the water back into it. Yes, that's correct.
Single color transfer, not an issue, but as soon as you want to produce 2-3 color, then of course that's when it comes in.
Yeah, and don't stack it on the floor. You go into too many shops and they've got it. Yeah,
Sure.
Keep it up on a pallet, keep it up on a shelf.
Yeah.
And
And once you've preconditioned the paper, only bring out small stacks at a time. Don't bring the whole pallet, the whole sort of pallet out at one time. Just bring it out and work with small piles at a time.
exactly. If it's your main business, you're going to want to do a hot box or a hot room.
Yeah, absolutely.
But occasionally, like you said, run it through the dryer on occasional runs.
Yeah.
So James,
I remember working with one of the paper companies, and they reckoned it only took 15 minutes for the paper to absorb moisture back in. Yeah, it's only 15 minutes exposure, so you gotta take that into account.
Hey James, you were going to show off some PET sheets, yeah?
Yeah. And this is just from a customer. I went to a shop and we printed some. It's more of a frosted type, so we had several types for them to try. And the PET material has very good dimensional stability, so you don't need to do the hot box or run it through. That's one of the nice advantages. Plus, on image placement, when you can see through a film, when you put the transfer on, you can really see where the placements can be instead of hitting the paper. And there's even some new PET materials that are totally translucent. I've just started experimenting with these a little bit, Andy. I don't know if you've got this in Europe now.
Over here. Yeah.
Translucent, and you can see this one has a white background on the back of it. So there's a lot of options. What I try to do in the U.S. is get my screen printers to talk to their supplier of inks and say, what papers do you carry? Because you want to have an easy place to order from. And almost all these graphic supply houses have transfer paper. You just need to ask them. They'll sell you a ream of it, 100 sheets, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to move it because we're taking some time here. We need to get right into the meat of it. So we got our paper. Can we use any ink we want on this?
Well, I tell you guys, I've yet to find a plastisol that will not cold peel. I mean, I don't know if you guys have found one, but pretty much every plastisol ink will cold peel, you know.
Yeah, cold peel, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hot split, different game, because they're specially formulated, but for cold peel transfers,
Yeah, I agree.
And for all if all inks, you're better off using some kind of transfer adhesive powder afterwards. Is that correct?
I think particularly now, because I think that the demands for the durability of transfers just keeps increasing. You know, so customers are looking for increased, you know, wash fastness, stretch, crop resistance. Plastisol on its own doesn't really cut. You know, you need to give a bit of a help, and using either a printable adhesive or a powder.
Yeah, I was going to mention. If you don't want to use powder, there is some printable adhesive there.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Also, you don't use powder on hot split, and that's I want to make a point of that. We don't use it because we want it to embed into the paper. We don't need the powder. But
it's funny, we don't see a lot of hot split in Europe. You know, it's it's cold peel for us over here, pretty much, or hot peel, but not hot split. You don't see a lot.
Right. And Ray,
mesh and stencil.
Yeah.
What do you recommend, James, on stencil on meshes?
Well, I think for people starting out making transfers, let's make it real easy. Let's get a 110 mesh so that we make sure we lay down a lot of ink on the paper. Let's do a cold peel to start with. Get a coated paper, a 110 mesh. I wouldn't go higher than a 156 for my first trial. I want to lay down and I want to have enough ink on the paper. And just try one color. I had a customer one time, I bought a vacuum table from me, and he said, "You need to come show me how to use this. I've never made transfers." So I made this long drive, and in 10 minutes, we made a one color. He goes, "That's it? You drove all the way here for that?"
Yeah.
It's very easy to make the one color.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. Once you understand the basics, you can just do it, and it's amazing work. I mean, obviously, everything else, the screen tension is important, and all that. But how about the stencil?
Well, certainly on the emulsion, you want a high solid content, definitely. You know, on the emulsion, I think you got to get some really sharp lines on the screen. Yeah. Because obviously, when you're printing onto the paper, any sawtooth will be absolutely, you know, replicated, and when you transfer, that will be replicated onto the garment. Because obviously, paper or polyester is not as absorbent as printing direct onto cotton. So, you know, you want some really good definition in your lines on the screen, high solid content on the emulsion.
Let's look at machinery. What kind of machines do we need? What can you use?
You know, you don't have to spend much. You know, you don't have to spend a lot of money to enter into transfer printing. You know, a simple screen setup, small dryer, and a transfer press. You know. Yeah. I've seen guys even use hot air guns to gel the transfers.
Because you're just gelling.
Yeah, just to gel.
Yeah. I highly recommend getting a plexiglass vacuum palette for your manual press, or it's okay to do your first experimenting with with a regular palette. And Ray's putting some pictures up of some of my equipment here in my shop. But you'll want to. A lot of people use mist spray adhesive, and they'll print on the paper. The trouble is the adhesive's on the back side of the paper, and it's going to get on the heat element of your heat press. So, and with a vacuum, you can lay down the paper for registration much easier. So
yeah. I had a picture of that vacuum. I don't know why I didn't get on the presentation. It was my fault. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Basically, it looked like plexiglass, with little holes drilled in it, and actually sucks the paper down in place. And it's easy to move the paper around into a 3-point system and get it lined up.
I don't know if you know. I got it for you, Ray. There's my vacuum.
That's awesome. Okay, so obviously manual printer, automatic, whatever. But if you can do it, I would say I see mostly like some kind of a flatbed, like a pattern press or something like that has a vacuum, or even a manual that has a fitted vacuum.
Yeah. And Ray, one last point on that. I have a light. If you notice, there's a light underneath it. And I can see through that. And that helps me with registration. You can see through the print.
So let's just go over quickly. Okay, you've got everything ready. Let's go through the process. Okay, you've got your screen lined up. So what's your move? Well, how do you register it?
Okay, I'll start. Yeah, so we use a 3-point registration system, and if you couldn't see it on that picture I held up, but I just have 3 points that I can put my transfer on. So I'll have a little mark here, here, and one down the corner. That's a 3-point registration system, so that I can lay my paper down against those 3 points every time. Another point is I have a factory edge on my paper. So there's always an edge that was cut in the factory. So always check out your factory edge, because normally they take a giant sheet and they cut it in fourths. Well, with the guillotine printer, it doesn't cut it perfect. So we use the factory edge. We set it in 3-point registration. The print, let's say we do 50 transfers, Ray. We'll print one color. We run them all through the textile dryer just to gel the inks. Then we bring all those papers back, 3-point registration, take the second screen, put your second color on. So the same way we did here, we print one color, line it back up. And so that's the way they do it. I know, and you'll have some questions about why we can't flash cure on them too.
Right. Yeah. So obviously, that's the first questions we always get is why can't we just flash between colors? And I mean, there's some problems inherently with that.
Yeah.
Shrinkage, all sorts of things. Can you expound on that?
And sure. One thing about it, you'll have someone new. They get on their manual press. They use their flash cure, and it works for a little while because you're just gelling that ink. The problem is your shirt board or the platen starts heating up and gathering heat, and then you're totally curing the ink on the paper. You also get the excessive shrinkage. You just can't control a flash cure unit, number one. A tunnel gives me a tunnel dryer gives me very accurate temperatures, and I can keep my gel where it's supposed to be. So all those guys trying it on their manual press and flashing, it works for the first 10, and then it doesn't work after that.
Right. When you're trying to multicolor, you got to line them up individually. They're going to be perfect.
Yeah, we've all tried it. And so.
And obviously, we mentioned this earlier. Again, it's reverse rotation. You're doing the key. If it's a key line, if it's a vector, it's key line down first, then color, then a backer. Okay, so Andy, how about applying the transfer powder? How do you apply transfer powder?
Well, you can. Typically people apply them manually, which is quite simple. Just a case of. I've seen guys even use like an old coating trough. And just fill the coating trough with a piece of powder, and then just run your transfer sheet through the powder. Yeah. Then you just remove the excess and then pass through the dryer. Trays of powder. So it's a manual operation unless you go automatic, fully automatic, obviously. And then that's a different story altogether. Then.
Well, you get the Olive Garden cheese thing.
Yeah, generally. Most print shops, and even the most sophisticated print shops, they still do it. A lot of them still have a manual. Some of the end of the dryers still do it manually. And it is just a tray with the powder, and you run the sheet through, shake off the excess, and
you just dip
through the dryer. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Dip it in the pan.
That's it.
And you mentioned a second ago, James, is to gel it. You're going through the ovens. You are not curing this ink. You are gelling it. Which is basically a very controlled flash through the oven.
Right. Yeah, and in fact, Ray, at the end of the tunnel, when it comes out, we like to fold the transfer, and it makes kind of a kissing sound. You can tell when you've gelled it. And you mentioned earlier where you can peel it off, and it shouldn't stay balled up. It should roll back. It should go back out. Yeah.
I think from if you think of the number of technical inquiries, the gelling factor is one of the biggest areas of problems when it comes to
I agree.
Well, curing and gelling is usually the problem in all screen printing.
That's true.
True.
So when it comes out, you're gelled, you finish your print. Now you're going to apply it to a T-shirt. What's important about a T-shirt press?
Well,
You want consistent temperature, consistent pressure, ideally. Whether you go manual or automatic depends, I guess, on the frequency or the volume of transfers you're producing. If you're producing transfers every day and applying them, you definitely want an automatic at the end of the week. Manual press is sufficient for. I mean, it's absolutely sufficient for most print shops. If you're only applying transfers, every 2-3 days or something.
sure.
Yeah, you definitely want one that you can. These three things are most important to me. If you get something that'll give you the time, the temperature, and the pressure, you're going to be okay. And also, always test your plate. Make sure it's hitting the temperature it's saying it's hitting. Because
Right.
I've tested these many times, and I've been in a shop before where they had 20 of these, and every one of them read a little different. And
Yeah.
we adjusted the time and temperature individually for each one of those.
Exactly. Hey, Ray, one quick point. When we talk about pressure, a lot of people would call me. I sold transfer machines, as you know, for 20 years.
Yeah.
People would say, "Hey, your machine worked great for 5 years, and now it's not transferring." And almost every time it's that rubber pad because it compresses and it gets old. You have to change that rubber pad after a while, and I don't get consistent pressure. And every time I'd send them a pad, and I never had a phone call again. Compression.
There's a point you sent me in your notes, James, the importance of pre-pressing the garment, especially if it's some of those newer materials it's just like if you're on press running a directed garment, some people will iron it before they print. It's the same issues. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You always want to pre-press. It takes the moisture out of the garment. It also lays the garment flat. And many times I've had people say these transfers aren't working. So while I'm talking to them, I'm pre-pressing. And I open it up and the transfer comes off perfect. They're like, "How did you do that?" Well, I'm not trapping moisture under it. I'm preheating it. So I'll always pre-press. In fact, a lot of machines have it programmed so that you can pre-press, the buzzer goes off, and then it's time.
Yeah.
That's a great feature.
Well, I anticipated one of the questions, and sure enough, I'm correct. How do you know that you're getting gel in your oven? And here's one way: you map your oven with a thermal probe.
Absolutely.
Every ink manufacturer has something like this on their website. Learn about it. Get your thermal probe. It's the most important piece of equipment you'll have, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I've got a question here. Here's a good one. I'm just about to start testing transfers. The biggest fear I have is making sure it's opaque for dark colored garments. I would love tips and tricks on better transfers. Don't think this is possible with any other product that could discharge the transfers, but we're not going to be discharging, but you actually create your backer, your white plate is on the extra transfer. So it creates a opaque color for you.
Yeah.
That's correct. James has an example right there.
Yeah, you got the
You
back.
bring the white glass on that transfer paper. It's the first thing down. It's what attaches to the garment.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Sometimes you'll get, customers, they don't want.
Coding is coding. You're trying to get your. He says 2-1 coding method. If that's your method, a manual or automatic printing. Coding. That's the way you do it. If you're getting good stencil, if you're not getting good stencil, you change that. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. You should be able to feel the stencil when you run your finger across the contact side of the screen.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we check. And if you can't feel that ridge on the side, you're not giving yourself a good gasket. And that's kind of one-on-one.
We're getting close to the end. We have a familiar name here from Nancy Brown.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
This is a loaded question. Do you have a non-PVC transfer system for our new sustainable brand? We are, with our new systems, we are working on these hard. Believe me. We're looking into a couple of them. We're not going to say what, but we are helping, and we're willing to work with some customers to see what they have and what they're trying to achieve, and we are developing. Is that correct, Andy? Andy's
Absolutely. From a European perspective, the whole focus on transfers is for non-PVC solutions. at the moment. Yeah, that's the way the market's going in Europe. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have a lot more questions. I mean, we're going to monitor this event and answer all your questions. So keep commenting. But we need to get off now. We're at 30 minutes.
That was fun, guys.
This low with these guys on there. But well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you, James, and thank you, Andy, for coming on. I know it was a little difficult for Andy. We were having trouble right before he came on, but he made it through. Really, barely hearing us. Fantastic.
And we made it without subtitles. Well done.
That's
Well
awesome.
Well done.
All right, guys. I thank you, and you guys, like I said, keep commenting, and we'll get to your questions.
Thanks, Ray.
Guys, see ya.
Yeah.